Good afternoon, ladies and menfolk. Welcome to episode 58 of Word Ninjas Live. I
Yes.
am your instigator of creative productivity, Charles, and joining me today is almost the entirety of our crew. Apparently, they all wanted to play today. Hooray!
Yay!
What they said.
Joining me is Calvin
Hello.
and Justin.
I'm here after a 2-week absence.
And Will.
Hello!
And probably Ed is hiding somewhere in the background doing other productive
what?
things.
No, I'm just kidding.
But yes,
He's
we're
being productive elsewhere.
probably doing diabolical machinations of some sort, as we do.
Indeed.
But in the meantime, the rest of us are going to bring you a show. And since we were somewhat short-staffed last week, we skipped our talkie points. But since we have so many people today, I'm going to make them answer the questions, whether they like it or not.
Ah, crap.
It's too late now. You're already on the show.
It is my own doing. Or undoing.
All right. The first talkie point is an actual hypothetical situation. The hypothetical situation is you have the power to manipulate one personal factor and one global factor. In other words, you can control like the chemical wiring of your brain because that's personal, and you could, I don't know, control the power of flames or fire or whatnot because that is outside of your person. Anything else you interact with in life would just be normal. As in, like, current normal, not anime or Hollywood normal. Let's not
Real
get ridiculous here.
Real
What
normal, not
to-
Michael Bay normal.
Yes. That does not count, because that's Hollywood. What two abilities would you choose, and why? And considering we didn't leave space in the talkie points for people to post their answers so that we could remember them conveniently when we're live, I will go first so other people can flail around behind the scenes and figure out their answers. Conveniently, I did kind of cheat by putting my answers in that question because those are the two I would probably choose. Or at least for the personal one, it would be the chemical wiring of my brain. Because then I could manipulate my energy levels, my interest levels, my motivation levels. I could get rid of a lot of stupid emotional and psychological crap filling up my head, slowing things down, which would make things a lot easier to do, especially for work and Terror 2015 and all of the various crazy endeavors I want to do, but just can't seem to pull together. And theoretically, it would also help with my whole ability to retain information and remember stuff and not fumble around when trying to figure out who was that person, why did we need to deal with them, or what is this show, why am I on it, what is going on, stuff like that. As for the global type thing, I don't know, controlling fire or flames or speeding up the physics of various atoms would be pretty interesting and kind of useful in various scenarios, especially if the power goes out during the winter and we only have one crappy little fireplace that doesn't really cut it. That and being able to control fire is just pretty darn cool, regardless of if it's primarily in anime or Hollywood and whatnot.
True. Very true.
I feel like those two would be my personal and global abilities that I would like better control of. And hopefully I rambled on long enough for someone else to get an idea before I just start pointing at faces as Justin disappears. So
I definitely know what I would do for personal.
well, I nominate Will then.
I assume it would fit under personal. I want shape-shifting.
Well, that would be control over your physical form, so.
I would want shape-shifting because sometimes I feel that I should appear different. And I also like the idea of being able to be sneaky, stealthy better.
Shapeshifting would allow you to change any part of yourself, so you could be the ultimate spy.
And it just feels, I don't know, right? That would be my first pick. That would be definitely probably be my first pick. Would be the shape-shifting.
Not to mention, you'd never need a haircut again.
I've never have to shave again either. I hate shaving. It's tedious and annoying. And then it just grows back, and like the next day it's already stubbly. Why?
I have a solution for that.
Yeah.
Don't.
But the thing is, when I let it grow in, it is incredibly itchy.
Give it about a week. You'll be fine.
I'm not quite sure I'm ready to do the full beard thing yet. I imagine I'll let the full beard thing start happening as I get older.
Let it grow during the winter.
Keep the face warm. That's why I keep the mustache. Whenever I've shaved off the mustache for cosplay reasons, it's just like, what was the angry man from Family Guy? I forget his name.
It's been forever since I've seen
Guy?
Tom something.
The news reporter guy.
Yeah, the anchor man.
Oh, Tom Tucker?
Tom Tucker. When he had his mustache removed and he's sitting there, he's like, so cold. Like, that's what it feels like when you live with a mustache and then you shave it off. It's just cold.
And that's why I really shave.
So, yeah, shape-shifting. As for global, a part of me wants to say I'd want to do something that would be really helpful to the global community, like being able to make food grow so that there could be food. But on the other hand, I'd also think it would be cool to be able to control electricity.
That would have come in handy on a couple occasions.
Certainly being your own little power supply, recharge generators or whatever. So I don't know which one I would choose, because on the other hand, I could make unlimited food. Just like plant seeds, and then I could just be like, nope, it's done. Instant food. Go feed the hungry.
Yeah, but how quickly do you think some foreign government is going to take you and provide food for their army and not anyone else?
That's where the shape-shifting comes in handy. I change my form and disappear into the night.
Into an ear of corn.
Yep.
So those two would work together. I could do it, and then I could shapeshift into another form and disappear, and no government would ever find me. I would have one form that I would use just for making crops grow faster. And then whenever there was trouble, I would shapeshift into any other form and just disappear. They'd never know where I was. Aha!
That's actually pretty brilliant.
So, those are my answers.
Would that ability be able to overlook the agricultural concepts of if you keep on growing wheat in one spot over and over again, it draws out all the nutrients for that, and then you have problems? Or would you have to be a little strategic about it?
Well, there are definitely ways around that.
I'd probably just do crop cycling.
Exactly, like that.
Or you could just grow weed hydroponically instead of food. That works too.
There is that as well.
I would probably just go with crop cycling. That way I could keep re-nutrifying the soil as it went. Be like a regular farmer, only in a fraction of the time. And all the food I would give to people who need food. Because there are a lot of people who need food.
Hmm.
All right.
Jeez, that makes a lot more sense than just being able to control fire.
Like I said, if I couldn't do that, lightning bolts.
Well, my answers seem very insignificant in comparison now. Okay. The personal factor that I would like to manipulate is metabolism. So that way I could adjust my sleep schedule to however I like, and allow my body to conserve or use energy accordingly. So if I need to pull several all-nighters in a row, I'd be able to adjust my metabolism so I could stay awake without any significant detriment to my body.
When would you ever need to do that, though?
I don't know. I'm still trying to come up with scenarios for that, but might be able to come up with something.
Calvin, we need this website done tomorrow.
Give me 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. Three orders of pork fried rice from the Chinese food store, and lots of Gatorade. So that's the personal factor. Environmental factor. I've been trying to decide between control of wind or water, because both would be fun. I could use wind control to essentially fly wherever I need to, and just any way to avoid having to take public transportation or drive or things like that. I still don't have my license. ...
That I did not know.
Calvin and I are perpetually in the no driver's license club.
Yeah. Alright, I didn't come up with any fun scenario for water, so forget that. Wind.
Would you do the Superman pose when you're flying around? Or the
No,
powdered toast
powdered
man
toast man.
pose?
Definitely gotta go powdered toast.
Oh, no. Even better. The freezer pose. While flying. I'd literally be like running in the air. Yes, that'd be perfect.
You guys have all been thinking too small, and
Maybe Justin, that's pretty hard to beat.
maybe I took the question and gave myself too much power, but I can probably scale back somewhat and still accomplish what I'm trying to do. So for my personal factor, all you guys are forgetting the most obvious one, and that's immortality. And if I'm not allowed to use immortality, then I would just make my skin impervious to things going through it, except oxygen, I guess, because I think your skin cells need that.
They need sunlight too.
Yeah, things like that. I would allow something.
Moisture.
Maybe just keep metal out. I don't think people
keep
carry.
high velocity things from impacting your skin.
Photons are pretty high velocity. I don't think that would work out well.
High velocity solid objects.
Anything larger than a molecule.
So something to that effect. I prefer.
Maybe something in lines of Greed from Full Metal Alchemist, where he can
Ooh,
change
yeah.
the density of his skin at will.
Ooh.
Since it's
Absolute defense.
Yeah.
Ooh, nice.
There's still some problems with conservation of momentum that you'd have to deal with.
He didn't seem to have any trouble kicking Ed's ass. Oh yes, Creed.
Excuse me.
And for the environmental thing, you guys are all thinking about your elements. I'm thinking about time itself. Basically, if I'm immortal and can control time, that's pretty much game over for everything else besides me. And I would even promise not to go backwards in time. That screws things up. Not interested.
Well, how would we ever know?
I'm not. Well, we already do know because it hasn't happened.
How do we know?
Only tell us.
If you make it so we don't realize it.
Humans are stupid and infallible, so I'm pretty sure we would have screwed it up somehow.
How do you know
It made
we
it
haven't?
extremely obvious. Anyways, I'm just going to avoid the whole thing, but not going backwards in time. But I'll be able to slow time, stop time, change time locally. Now, the reason why I need to be immortal to pull this off is because if I change the time locally to around me, time goes normally, but everything else outside of me, has stopped, then I'm going to age a lot quicker than I normally would have. So the immortality thing would come in very handy, synergy-wise, with that other power.
That would be a pretty
Interesting.
impressive combination if you can find the balance between it all. But presumably the balance is inherent with those powers. You're not going to be trial and erroring to figure things out.
That is actually a pretty interesting combination. There was an article that I read some time back that hypothesized the concept of immortality and your perception of time as you continue to live. And according to that article, your perception of time would continue to speed up as time goes by. So your perception of day and night, weeks, months, years would just all start to bleed into one another. So your being able to control time is actually a perfect counterbalance to that.
Whenever I think about someone being able to live for an immortal amount of time, I always think there was one episode of one of the Ben 10 series where they had a guy who went through time as an immortal. He lived so long that he went insane, and then continued to live so long that he went sane again. Horribly, horribly sane.
Wait, define horribly, horribly sane.
That's just what he said. He's like, I was in the vortex for so long I went insane, and then I went sane again. Horribly, horribly sane.
Sounds like something from Douglas Adams.
I was thinking a Dr. Manhattan level of sanity.
He was sane, he just had a very unique perspective on reality, considering his ability to control everything.
Yeah, there was another thing, and actually from a fighting game, one of the Soul Calibur games had an immortal in it whose ultimate goal was to become mortal again because he had lived for so long, he had simply grown tired of living. He had learned every mystery in the world, knew everything, studied everything, and there was nothing left. And he was just going day to day. So his grand quest was to regain his mortality so he could finally end his life.
I feel like if I was living forever, I would have to relearn a lot of things. I don't think you doing research on something is going to permanently have that knowledge in your brain. You're going to have a finite number of storage in your brain, and so to make up for that, you're going to start forgetting stuff really quickly. So you're going to have to re-remember things. And you'll probably forget about your past and all your previous friends as you go through millennia after millennia.
That's not depressing at all.
No, you have all the new friends. You don't need old friends like CJ.
Well, I'll be long dead by the time you forget about me, so.
Exactly.
As the elves spoke about in the Forgotten Realms Drizzt series, you're going to live with shorter raced people. You have to live your life as a series of mini lives. And when they all die off, start a new life.
Makes sense.
There's another
Or
thing.
just live with elves.
There's another scenario that I thought about. There's the eventual, excuse me. There's the eventual evolution of languages and learning and society and things like that. So, in terms of learning, you'll never be not for learning.
I think the end game for the Soul Calibur was, as he was about to gain his mortality, he had a glimpse of the future and what was to come, which is basically the present for us, with skyscrapers and advanced technology and all that.
Mhm.
So he instead decided to keep his immortality so he could work to make that future happen. And they show him later on in a modern day setting as a very successful businessman.
Hmm. Interesting.
That's if you play his story correctly. If you play it incorrectly, he gains his mortality and then just basically writes a autobiography of his life that fills up a mini library in and of itself before finally kicking the bucket. Hooray, endgame QuickTime events.
This is almost worthy of its own little hypothetical situation of what would you do if you were immortal? And how would your type of immortality work? But let's save that for another episode.
Add that to the list of questions.
Yes, please.
Gives us a bit of time to figure it out. In the meantime, the other talking point for today. Is there a reason, time, or scenario where banning a book from the public is a viable option or plan? If you want to go the easy route, you could go, like, does this include the army, political, national security level types of documents, since those are kind of gray areas, or is there a pure black and white yes or no answer to this?
Is this referring to present day?
That's how I thought of it, but if you want to take a different spin on it, by all means. The impetus for this was because Banned Books Week is coming up in a couple weeks, and I was curious how people kind of perceive that whole topic.
I assume that we're talking about non-illustrated versions of the book. If we're talking about just words on paper, because if we can expand that to imagery, then I could think of a whole list of things that should not be published.
We can go down that road if you like. Depending on how deep we go, we can spin that out for another talking point, but at this point, anything is on the table, however you want to spin it.
For the sake of my sanity and everyone else who's listening, I'm going to stick to just words.
Oh, like we have said.
Roll that over.
I know a lot of banned books are usually works of fiction, aren't they?
Primarily.
See, I don't get that. I think South Park covered that pretty well in their Catcher in the Rye episode, where it was a banned book that wasn't banned anymore because they thought it would be so horrible for little kids to read, and they all read it and were like, that's it? He swore a couple times. This wasn't that bad. Why was this banned? Why did they all make a big deal about it? I feel like a lot of the banned books, when they're works of fiction, are just people who are, like they said in the episode, reading between the lines and putting meaning behind stuff that doesn't have that deeper meaning. And they get really offended by it, and then are like, oh my goodness, so controversial, we need to ban it. And sometimes you just need to take it at face value. Plus, it just feels weird to ban literature so hardcore. Like, put warning labels on it. Like, movies and video games and TV shows have age ratings on them. if you're worried about a book not being appropriate for certain ages or groups, put the little warning labels on them. And say, yeah, this book is for mature audiences. Don't let your kids read 50 Shades of Grey.
I don't think anyone should be reading that one, but yeah.
Well, yeah, it was the first one to come to mind that I knew. Don't let kids read the Kama Sutra.
Or put like ESRB ratings on things.
Yeah, we do it for movies and games and CDs. It would be a viable way of at least labeling stuff.
That would require the ratings board to read every word and content. It takes a lot less time to digest a movie or playing a video game until the first time somebody gets stabbed in the face, and then you can say, "Oh, this is rated M," and then now you're done. And I guess you could do that to a certain extent with a book, but if some author wants to get, creative and have the most horrific thing at the very end,
why got released with a lower rating than it really should have got because they gave the raters a dumbed down, censored version of the game before release, and then snuck the official release out, and it has gore and nudity in it, and it's rated like P when it should be rated M or possibly even A, just because they gave them a different version of the game. They basically tricked the system. I think they waited to the last minute to send it out to review so that they could just slap the rating on and ship it out on the release date without anyone being able to stop them.
Oh my.
That's a dangerous move, because that then if they find out about that, then I think how it usually works is they demand a recall, so all retailers that have a copy of it have to destroy it.
It depends on how egregious it is and when it was. Y came out in the late 80s? Mid to late 80s? It wasn't like the hidden sex scene in Grand Theft Auto, where the hidden sex scene minigame that you could unlock if you knew what you were doing. That required a bit of a recall because it was pretty graphic. And definitely an adults-only thing.
Back to the books topic. Is there any modern day banning of books that goes on besides maybe a school saying, "Oh, we're not going to allow this in our library," or the town specifically saying? Well, I don't even think a lot of towns even do that anymore, banning books out.
You'd be surprised.
I don't hang out around the Bible Belt too often, so.
I think the modern version of banned books is really more about censored or restricted. It's kind of hard to outright ban a book, period, because it's just going to be out there in some way, shape, or form or format. But schools and libraries and bookstores can actually refuse to have copies or provide copies of certain books or authors based on certain complaints. From the various research I've seen, it's primarily public schools, private schools, and primarily done by parents or some other private organization making complaints about a book because of swearing, nudity, adult content, or religious-based opinions in the books.
It's not like we're dealing with World War II where the Nazis were burning books.
No, thankfully we're not at that level.
Okay, well, in the context of like public schools and things like that, excuse me, I can see how like school boards would want to like steer curriculums a certain way, so they would want to like opt out of certain books that may either would steer away from what teachings they're trying to go for, or just deemed in their mind in poor taste. So in that respect, I can understand and reluctantly accept. But that's basically like my personal extent of like censorship of books.
Hmm.
I mean, we have the internet. We that is the bastion of information and knowledge that is just about freely available everywhere. There's an asterisk about freely available.
And I'd also
Really?
put an asterisk over everywhere as well,
Yeah. Not all places have
considering
internet
certain
access.
countries.
Freely available everywhere.
There are places in America that don't have regular internet access.
Right.
Hmm.
I'm leery of the idea of banning books simply because some people are afraid of exposing their kids to real life, that they basically just blind them throughout their entire education system and then throw them blindly into the world. And some people do that. They don't expose their kids to any kind of violence or sexual anything, and then they turn 18 and it's like, here you go, have fun, and they don't know anything about anything.
And
And
then they find the internet.
then they find it in real life in the worst possible ways, and things go horribly, horribly wrong.
Hmm.
So there's a point where you need to educate your kids about, you can't protect your kids from the bad stuff in the world because it's out there. You need to expose them to it, but as a parent, you should expose it to them tactfully. Don't just pretend it doesn't exist. If you're afraid a book might be harmful to your kid, read it with your kid, so that way you can explain things to them so that they understand.
Hmm.
It's like how you're supposed to, like, the meaning behind PG and PG-13 is parental guidance. What they're saying is, sit down and watch this with your kid, so that as a parent you can guide them on anything they may not understand.
Let's see, what are some of the... I was looking at the banned books website, and they actually had a page just for like banned books that shaped America, so I guess some of the most controversial ones. The top of the list is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain.
That was banned because he says the N-word.
Basically. I mean, there's a couple other concepts in that book that can be tricky to explain to children, but yeah, the N-word was the primary vilifier of that book.
Even though at the
least
time that it takes place, people used it all the time.
In 1884, there was a completely different context for that word.
Yep.
Right.
Or at least, not completely different, but a different context for that word. That is where the education system needs to come in and explain the difference of literature over time.
Yeah.
Stuff changes.
So you
And
read
then
that book
discuss
with your
that.
kid, and when that word comes up, you say, don't say this word, because nowadays it means something different. Back then, more people said it, but now it's don't.
Kind of like how a couple
Sure.
decades ago, gay had an entirely different context and meaning behind it.
Hmm.
This kind of reminds me of like the old Warner Brothers cartoons and how a significant, well, not a significant portion, but a good portion of them were like hideously racist and offensive. But I believe Warner Brothers stood against banning them outright, but gave the warning that these cartoons were made in a time, made in a different era, where doing such things was acceptable, but they do not condone. In this era, they do not condone any of those previous views. So, with that respect, I think banning things outright would cause. I don't know. I just don't think it's a terribly good idea to just like ban certain things because of like
Like you're
previous offenses.
dismissing.
But exactly,
Hmm.
like it's better not to dismiss these things, but to rather to like make informed decisions and like inform those who weren't from that era, what those were about, and why those how those views have changed and why we don't agree with those views now. And the same, I agree with that for books as well.
Yeah, I remember reading about those Warner Brothers episodes. Yeah, they do. You can get them, and they do have that warning about they were made in a different time where people believed different things, and now things have changed, and we've realized that these are the wrong way of, the views in these cartoons are the wrong way of thinking. And I think Disney even has a couple movies that are banned because of pretty bad racism. There's even one, I forget what it's called, but it basically portrays slavery and being a slave as a good thing, and that the slaves enjoyed being slaves. Meanwhile, what?
Song of the South.
Yeah, that one.
That one's weird.
Meanwhile, the lead actor of the movie was not allowed to go see the premiere of the movie because he was black.
Oh wow.
That was a double standard back then.
I even read something interesting about music. How a lot of older white musicians would steal the styles of black music and play it as their own, and that's how a lot of the black music, pretty much every style of music, got out. And there were white musicians who would hire black musicians to work under them because only the black musicians could really get the music right. And the black musicians did it because they got paid more and they could actually stay in hotels when on tour. Because if they were part of an all-black group, they weren't allowed in hotels. They'd have to stay in buses or room in people's homes. But if they were part of a group that had a white lead singer, they could stay in the hotels because they were part of the band.
Right.
But they were the people that made pretty much every style of music ever. Really? Everything really stems from those old African folk songs that got brought over by the slave trade. And white people said, hey, let's get a catchy beat, let's steal it.
And very little attributions from the original creators. Even to this very day.
Minor little footnotes.
Yeah.
If they're lucky.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm still going through this list of most controversial banned books that shaped America. It might just be because I was raised in a pretty decent public school in New England, but we had to read at least 10 of these in middle school and high school.
I had to read Huck Finn.
So, I mean, there were a couple where I had to have a parent sign a waiver saying I'm allowed to read it because there's a swear word in it, which was stupid, but...
Well, I think a lot of these banned books were not necessarily banned due to, language. It was mostly due to context and content. One thing that really stands out to me is Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. There's a district official in Wisconsin that banned the book, and he said, and I quote, "If there's a possibility that something might be controversial, then why not eliminate it?" And that's extremely telling about that community.
That sounds like something that was parodied on South Park several times.
You want to talk about a book that was controversial? I had to read I Am Regina. Any of you guys ever read that one?
No.
I don't think so.
It's a book about a settler woman in the Midwest whose family is attacked by Native Americans, and all the men are scalped, and she's captured by the Native Americans and forced to live as a member of their tribe. And most of the novel tells about her being forcibly integrated into the Native American tribe, which also includes almost being raped, except that guy got his ass kicked when they caught him. And at the end of the book, when she's finally mentally integrated into the society and finally, many, many years later decided this is my home, the cavalry come in, kill everyone, and rescue her and forcibly force her back into civilized society, and that's how the book ends.
Yeesh.
Yeah. I had to read that in, I think it was elementary school.
Really?
I thought it was a horrible book. I was like, this is one of the most depressing things I've ever read. And I was just a kid at the time.
That seems like a book more suited for, at the very least, junior high school.
Yeah, I think it was elementary school. Or maybe very early junior high, like 6th or 7th grade, but I think it was like 5th grade or something like that. And then we had to meet the author.
Oh, wow.
So we all sat down and listened to the author talk about the book, and I just wanted to be like, I didn't like your book. It was horrible. She probably would have been like, that's the point.
Have you ever revisited that book since you first read it?
No.
I don't blame you.
I read it. I'm fine. I didn't actually own it, you know.
Ah.
But, you know, that was definitely would have been considered controversial because there's a lot of violence in it. Like I said, there was rape in it. And our public school said, here you are, you're going to read it. And then you're going to meet the woman who wrote it.
I feel like that would have been one where it would have been useful to have like a sign form from the parent saying it's okay to read it, because for
My
some that might be
stepdaughter,
triggering.
we had to sign a form for my stepdaughter to watch Oh Brother, Where Art Thou in her school.
How weird, how bad of a movie was that?
I didn't think it was that bad of a movie. I think there's some racial tension in it and definitely some violence in it.
Ooh.
But
So different from nowadays.
yeah. But the thing is, she went to a school that advocated mixing of different races, and it was in New London, so automatically she, as a white girl, was the minority in the school. Not that she cared, because she's used to being around African Americans and Hispanics and all kinds of different races. Actually, I like that school because they definitely advocated understanding of other cultures.
Right, so I've been trying to track down the charts that I found a couple days ago from the banned book site of like reasons for challenging a book to be banned or restricted or stuff like that. There's a lot of options that I didn't realize. Some obviously more prevalent and sensible than others. I mean, offensive language, sexually explicit, occult or Satanism. That one I'm pretty sure is a gray area and pretty debatable, depending on the book.
Depends on how literally you take it.
Yeah. Same for unsuited for age group. I have a feeling I would get very angry at some of the ones that were submitted for that one.
Yeah, that's definitely objective.
Yeah. And it also gives a chart by challenges by initiator. Parents were the biggest challengers or initiators. And other initiator, which doesn't really give us much to work off of, was kind of the next. So it seems like parents are the biggest people to blame for challenging a book. So
A lot of time, I hate to say it, a lot of time it comes down to parents who, instead of wanting to educate their kids, just want to pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'm curious how much of that is being just overprotective or not sure how to handle the concepts or phrasings in a book, so why deal with it?
That's why it's so hard to, there's a lot of debate about stuff on, like Disney shows and whatnot, about how strongly they try not to show any kind of homosexual anything, because they believe the parents don't want to talk to their kids about homosexuality. When most stories I hear, it's easier to explain to young kids about it than it is to older kids. Young kids, you just say, well, those two men like each other the way your mommy and daddy do. And the kids go, oh, okay.
Let's see if I can...
Explain.
I'm actually going to screen share the... Oh god, it's going infinite. I'm going to screen share the charts because it's all in the same window now. Because it's pretty fascinating. Like the challenges by reasons over the past 2 decades. Initiator, parents are the biggest ones, but if you go by institution, school libraries, public libraries, and schools themselves are the biggest instigators. Everyone else barely even makes a blip.
It's because they don't want to deal with the parents, or they got yelled at by the parents, so the school makes the challenge.
Yeah, and I'm kind of fascinated by the fact that prison library is even an option. I mean,
I can get that because of who is reading. You might want to avoid some.
I mean, unless it's the Anarchist's Cookbook, how many books are really going to be that challenged?
Well, they're barely a blip on this map.
True.
Right.
Maybe that's the only book.
You know, they're not allowed to read Mein Kampf and stuff like that.
But yeah, it's interesting how they are able to track this over time, although I am kind of curious as to what the factors are behind the scenes for all of this. How do they calculate this? Who falls under which ones? Like, what constitutes offensive language? Are there some swears that are now culturally acceptable? Or are they all just not allowed? How do you figure out cultural sensitivity? I mean, which culture? There are a few. And if there's one challenge for being inaccurate or technical errors, just fix the damn thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. And this is all on the ALA.org website, but you have to
Can't
do a
help
bit
but
of
see
digging
how
to find
high getting
out.
hit in for having homosexuality is on the chart.
Yeah. I'm curious what constitutes challenged for that reason. Like, presumably,
I'm
it's
not
because it's
surprised.
promoted.
Sex education is one of the reasons for getting challenged. Heaven forbid we teach our kids about sex.
Well, let's see, I think it was this tab. One of the books was pretty obvious as to why they didn't want it on there. The Sexual Behavior in the Human Male. But that's from 1948, so some of their questions might be a little outdated.
That's true.
Although it was interesting, apparently, just by the
Kill a Mockingbird? I had to read that one.
Yeah. Let's see.
Read that one, yeah.
Where the Wild Things Are is on the banned book list.
Because they drew a baby's penis on one of the pages.
Oh
Gasp.
my god.
How dare they?
And apparently it was a scary story and not appropriate for people or for children of that age.
I loved that story.
We actually had an entire art show based off of that book at the local art place. I'm blanking on the name of it. And he was actually supposed to show up, but unfortunately that weekend his health wasn't good enough before.
Right.
Yeah, so, but yeah, that was a great book.
I owned that book as a young child, never mind having to read it because school said so.
As did I.
Yeah, I've read To Kill a Mockingbird. Didn't care much for it, but
I had to read it for school.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It was interesting. I think I had to read that one in middle school, maybe closer to high school, but it was... Yeah, Scarlet Letter, The Red Badge of Courage.
I liked Moby Dick, and I don't understand why it was that.
I could not read Moby
Upsetting.
Dick because the first chapter bored me. You want to talk about boring first chapters? I have the...
The rest of it's not much better, by the way.
I have the unabridged version, and
I
I had to read The Grapes of Wrath in high school.
like how Leaves of Grass was banned simply because they didn't understand it. Now, granted, that one is a very dense read. That one's hard to get your mind around. But come on.
Oh, I see why it was banned. It was banned in the place where it took place.
Oh, I didn't read
The
that
Grapes
part.
of Wrath. It was banned in Kern County, California, which is where the novel takes place.
Ah, I can see how they might be a little cranky about that, but let's see. I have yet to finish Gone with the Wind. I just couldn't get through it. And I hate The Catcher in the Rye. And I'm sure I'm going to get upset people about that, but I just never liked it, regardless of like the 4 times I've had to read it in school.
Never had to read it.
I think that's just a love or hate book. And although I did read The Call of the Wild in high school, it was not for school. That was during when I was not in school, because they would not let me in, and I had time to read.
I had to read Salem's Lot for school.
I have that in my 125 book pile of books to read.
It's a good book. That was a good one.
And I'm actually not joking about that number. I redid all of my to-be-read books yesterday. I have exactly 125 books to read.
Good heavens.
Yeah. I need to get on that at some point.
Yeah, a lot of these I had to read in school.
Yeah.
Or I've at least heard of. Oh, the autobiography of Malcolm X. I can imagine why that would be banned in certain areas.
Mm.
And I can understand why some of these are a little hard to talk about objectively in a class or with parents or children and all that, but that's why people need to make the extra effort so that these books can be understood in the context of when they were written or why they were written versus nowadays.
Yes.
Because a lot of these are pretty old. I mean, is there a single one on here published after I was born? I'm going to go with no. Oh, well, no. The Words of Cesar Chavez, 2002. I was born by then. But otherwise, all of these books were published long before I was even born. I can only imagine what they do nowadays with all of the books that are out there that would fit under a lot of those challenged topics. Because there's a lot more representation for various social, religious minorities and majorities and various other controversial stuff out there. That's almost a topic within itself. Probably should be a topic within itself since we've already hit the 1 hour mark. Oh, come on, stupid. Where'd my mouse go? I need my mouse to go to the show notes. There we go. Alright. I think it's worth tabling the further discussions on that for a future episode, considering we could have a couple spin-off questions probably from that alone.
Yeah.
In the meantime, let's roll into the highlights reel for the week. Now, it's a couple weeks old, because I didn't realize they'd already come out, but the 2014 Hugo Awards were awarded for this year. Now, that's primarily science fiction based, but it's interesting to see what some like the best of the best stuff out there is for any given year. Come on. Back to the screen share. Back to the infinity screen before I quickly tab over. Alright. I just thought it would be interesting to kind of show what the Hugo Award winners were for this year for any of our viewers and listeners out there who may be familiar with these books, authors, or publishers. I'm kind of surprised, but not overly, that Tor has gotten so many on here. And I'm actually glad that I've heard of most of these publishers. But apparently the best novel for the year was Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie. Of all the various literary podcasts I listen to, this book keeps coming up, so my to-be-read pile might soon be 126 books long. I don't even know what the plot of it is, but if so many people are talking about it and saying it's a worthwhile book to read, I'm kind of intrigued. I want to at least check out what the premise of it is. That's probably going to be more of a birthday or holiday purchase, though, at the moment. And it's nice that these awards actually go beyond just novels. Like, the best novella was Equoid. How would you pronounce that, actually?
Equoid?
For listeners, it's Equuoid. Pronounce that as you will, by Charles Stross. It goes even shorter to the best novelette, which was The Lady Astronaut of Mars by Mary Robinette Kowal, which is apparently different than the best short story. I forget the length delineations for all of these. But the best short story was The Water That Falls on You from Nowhere by John Chu. It's a pretty good title. I'm kind of intrigued just by that. I'm not sure what constitutes the best related work. I haven't delved into the details of some of these award titles, but that one is We Have Always Fought, Challenging the Women, Cattle, and Slaves Narrative by Cameron Hurley. I have no idea what that one actually is about. That's a pretty filled title. I agree with them on the best graphic story, which is Time by Randall Munroe over at XKCD. That one is a beast, and a fascinating one at that. If just Google Time XKCD, and that one will pop up, and it's a bit of a time suck, so be warned. But it's fascinating.
There is actually a website that has all 3,101 frames of time that you can preload and look through at your own pace.
Yeah, I stumbled upon that one while looking this one up. It is worth tracking down.
Should we put that in the show notes?
If you toss it in the Hangout chat, I can add it to the show notes.
Okay, do that right now.
I'll do that after.
There you go.
Thank you. They also do Best Dramatic Presentation for Long and Short Form. Based off of the short form one, I presume this is for like television and film. I've just never heard it phrased as dramatic presentation. But apparently Gravity, written by Alfonso Cuarón and Jonas Cuarón, was the best long form. I've heard of the film, but I haven't seen it. Apparently it must be very good, though. And the best short form was Game of Thrones episode The Reigns of Castamere. I thought that was the song. Well, I haven't seen a single episode of that, so shows what I know.
Same here.
They also go for editors, professional artists. I don't understand what the concept of a semi-prozine is. Fanzine, fancast, which is podcasts. Best fan writer and best fan artist. I'm not sure what those constitute. But they have a whole slew of awards every year, and it's a really cool thing to get even nominated. All the literary podcasts that I listen to seem to attend or get nominated or at least talk about it every year, so it's pretty cool. I would not mind getting nominated in a decade or 2 or 3 or 4 when I finally write my damn stories. Yeah, the full list is in the show notes, and we will add the hyperlink for XKCD's time in there as well in the post. And the other one that we were going to talk about was the fact that Banned Books Week is coming up, September 21st to 22nd, or 27th, not 22nd. It's a whole week. This is primarily coordinated by the American Library Association, the ALA, but also works with the American Booksellers Association, American Booksellers Foundation for Free Expression, and the American Society of Journalists and Authors. So this is a pretty big thing. And it's getting bigger every year as people become a little more self-aware of just what is and is not out there, how are things coordinated or promoted out there in the media. And it's interesting to delve a bit into, so it's worth checking out their website if you have a couple free moments, maybe after you've looked at the Time comic. And I believe on the 21st is when a couple of us are attending the Brooklyn Book Festival. I don't know offhand if they're doing anything for Banned Books Week, but it wouldn't surprise me. And because of that, our episode 60 is going to be on that Monday, actually, I believe the 22nd. So we are going to play around a bit with the Banned Books Week for that episode. Details on that once we figure them out. But considering the half-hour plus discussion we had on banned and challenged books, seems like there's a lot worth talking about and discussing. So go check out their website and learn more about why certain books are banned, censored, and all that good stuff. And back to infinity screen. Let me take myself off of screen share. There we go. That only happens when I have everything in the same Chrome window. I can at least take the Hangouts in a different tab. It doesn't spaz out like that, but technical difficulties today, so.
Meh, if those are the biggest technical difficulties, we're doing okay.
Indeed.
Yeah, especially for us. Alright, with that, it's time for writing prompts. That means I get to go back on screen share.
Should we change the name to Creative Prompts?
Probably. Well, technically the whole thing is just called Muse Food, but I keep going to writing prompts because that's what they were primarily, but since we've expanded, maybe I should just stay with Muse Food.
Probably.
Yes.
And now for the Muse Food segment.
Hooray! Much better.
Let's see. Let's close all the other tabs that I don't need, so I can quickly go over to the other one. Back to infinity screen, back to the other tab. Alright. Let's do one page. There we go. Alright, every week we provide various creative prompts because we enjoy giving other creative people ideas to play around with. We are providing 10 one-line writing prompts, 10 one-word writing prompts, a combination of Rory's story cubes, and we are playing around with some musical prompts via notes, and then an artistic writing prompt, which is generally just a phrase or a concept to play with each week. Now, seeing as there are 5 segments and 4 people, one of us is going to have to double up. I am going to take the musical and artistic writing prompt since I don't remember offhand how many people can read sheet music. So I'm going to nominate the other 3 to do the first page.
I was just gonna do.
I think one of those notes was off tune.
Probably all of them. Since I spoke, I guess I should do the one-line writing prompts.
Works for me. Have at it.
All right, I'll go now. These books are too darn heavy. I couldn't do it. Clean up your room before it grows sentience and eats you while you sleep. Can we talk for 3 minutes without shouting? No, we can't. Do everyone a favor and grab a towel. I don't want to know where that came from. Your mic is facing upside down, and it's not even plugged in either. I'm not a troll. I just have a case of tusk mouth. Fix the typos in your headlines, you dingus.
You
Banning
read that.
ramen is not how you make friends. We are alive and well.
And I'm going to nominate Will to do the one-word writing prompts.
Alrighty, so the one-word writing prompts for this week are rights, torso, macaroni, canister, physics, fall, hibernate, jug, hypothermia, and travel. And just to clarify for those who are listening in, rights is as in rights to the right, not right as in right words. It's R-I-G-H-T-S, not W-R-I-T-E-S. Because they sound incredibly the same, but mean completely different things.
And now for Calvin's interpretation of the story cubes.
Alright, let's see what we got here. We have somebody leaping off of what looks like either a short ledge or a very high stair. Somebody laughing uncontrollably. A matchstick burning a card of some sort or paper. You have somebody burying evidence of some kind. You have a short person mouthing off at a giant. You have a question mark. You have, well, depending on how you might see it, a sunrise or a sunset. We have a person who looks to be grabbing a cup off of a high point. And we have the Earth, specifically looking at Africa, Europe, Russia, and was that Greenland?
Sure, why not?
And there you have it.
Alright. As for the musical prompts, we have a bunch of quarter notes, specifically C, E, G, B, D, F. Still been a good while since I've had to write those and play those. But that's also in the treble clef currently. If you want, you're more than welcome to rewrite the clef to your own preferences. There is no time set for it. If you want to be simple, it can be 4/4, or you can make it whatever you want. That's your prerogative. As for the artistic prompts, we have the concept of through an open window. And those are your creative prompts for this week. Make of those what you will. If you do utilize any of these creative prompts, we would love to read, listen, or see such creations. You can email us a copy or URL where we can check it out via our email address, which is wordninja@fcwriters.com, conveniently at the bottom of each page of creative prompts. And infinity screen, off of screen share. There we go. Next up. Oh, favorite segment. Goals and aspirations. How have people been doing with their various goals and aspirations since whenever the last time people have respectively been on? Since mine is generally the longest, I'll burn through mine first. For the Inspire the Muse endeavors, 2014 convention logistics are as set as they're going to get on our end. We've done what we can. If we hear back from people, then things can change, but if not, we're as ready as we're going to be. For partnerships and affiliations, I'm creating a short list of places we want to be in more contact with or potentially do events at, or other places that have reached out to us for more local stuff primarily. interviews and networking, there's always an infinite amount in the works. We currently have one set for episode 61. As for my creative endeavors, I have not worked on my Nano Plot Bunny, and I have not worked on my sketch a day every day. I've actually been pretty bad about that. Shame on me. And my reading endeavors, as I said earlier, I've sorted my 125 books. They're all on my little bookshelf over there, which you probably can't see me pointing at because that's probably off screen, but they're over there. Now I need to figure out which ones to read first. And I nominate someone else to go now. People are taking too long, so let's go in order. Calvin.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to try my best to keep it together this week. I've been trying to keep it together. Most of you guys know for obvious reasons.
Mm.
And it's not getting easier, especially with some news that I got yesterday. Yay. But I'm going to try to keep it together as best I can. Hopefully, finishing editing these inconceivable panels will help with that. And I'm going to try and... No, I'm not going to try. I'm going to finish them this week. God damn it. And hopefully when I'm done with those, I can finish working on a song that I started last week. That's about it.
All right. How about the will?
Alright, so what's on my list here? Just gonna go through the list again. Record more gameplay. I actually live streamed some gameplay the other day,
It
which
was
was
very
fun.
entertaining.
Oh, you did watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I may do more of that. We'll see about actually recording for purposes for, excuse me, us, but I do intend to keep working on at least. I live streamed some of the Borderlands, what's it called? The Zombie Island of Dr. Ned DLC, which is entertaining. It's like a campy little B-movie style zombie horror movie plot to it. So it's pretty entertaining, and it's kind of fun to live stream through it and advance through the plot because I don't know how it goes, so we'll all go through it together. Write for myself, I definitely want to do that this week. I have a little plot idea that a friend of mine put into my head that I want to write out. Also writing for Roommate, I want to get into edit together the next Not Suitable for Word Ninjas podcast. I don't have to work on that for a while because I already did the one for this month. So I have over a month before the next one's due. Read all my new books. I still need to do that, especially since I got a manga the other day too. So, yeah, reading. And I definitely want to get into this. Upgrade my PC back to Windows 7 64-bit. It's been giving me some issues with the 32-bit, especially with the Minecraft 1.8 update. I can't run the server and play Minecraft on the server at the same time because it gets really laggy.
Oh dear.
But just for me, other people can get on the server and not have any issue, and I can play single player just fine, but apparently I can't do both at the same time. Maybe it's just where I'm playing at. There's a lot of ocean water. But I want to upgrade to the 64-bit, and I want to check out for some reason, randomly every now and then, my computer will move focus to something else, and if I'm playing a game, it'll minimize it. Which is bad if I'm playing something like Borderlands, because it won't necessarily pause the game, it'll just minimize the game. So if I'm in the middle...
Sounds like Gremlins.
I think it's Skype.
Really?
Skype is absolutely a horrible offender at doing that.
Yeah,
all the time.
especially lately, because I've noticed that when it does do that, Skype will be my Skype buddy list will be what's the active window, and if I close that window beforehand, I don't have that trouble. I've also noticed that I guess after the last Skype update where they did some stuff with their ads, it's really laggy when opening new windows and chat windows because it takes forever for the ads to load on the top of the screen. So yeah, I think it might be Skype. But considering I have 6 gigs of RAM in my computer, but on the 32-bit version of Windows 7 I can only utilize half of that, I feel like I'm wasting my potential here. So yeah, definitely want to do that. That's just going to take some work though, because yeah, upgrading operating system is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course I'll have to set up the server all over again.
That'll be a joy.
Well, at least this time you have time to properly back everything up.
Yeah, we
Yes.
won't lose anything. It'll just be a matter of getting it to play nice with firewalls and port nonsense and stuff like that. Yeah, but hey, it's been upgraded to 1.8, so all the new stuff is there.
Fill command.
Fill command. See, Calvin's all about the new commands. I'm all excited about the new blocks. There's a lot of.
You guys can geek out once we're off air. In the
We'll geek out about that later.
Let's get poor Justin going on his goals and aspirations updates.
So, I have been here for a few weeks, and I see the first thing on my list is long list of things to do, which is sort of meta in and of itself. I do have a long list of things to do that I started many weeks ago and then haven't actually been home to finish them up. I've done about half of them, maybe a little bit more than half, and some of them that haven't been checked off, I can probably check off because I haven't visited this list in a while, but I still did those things. Like a lot of cleaning. I cleaned the entire apartment, so that works out. And some of these are, linked together. Anyway, so I'm going to go through that list this week and see if I can finish them all up. I have to come up with monthly goals for the 2015 launch of Special Things and see what I want to get done this month and try to actually progress and do them. Get organized at work. This is especially important because we just got 2 huge new jobs that look like they're going to take 3 engineers for the next 6 months to work on.
Oh my.
So I have to get my S together on that. Shouldn't be too bad. And then I need to test Shadow Play for Let's Plays because I have upgraded my computer with a new graphics card, solid state drive.
Woohoo.
Few other things. Upgraded my laptop, which is why I was out one of the 2 weeks that I was out. So that has a solid state drive and some extra RAM in it as well.
Ooh.
And I want to stick with my Let's Plays talking about story in video games. A couple games that I was looking at doing was maybe The Walking Dead. I've already played the first season, but I could replay it and kind of talk about the story and what I think of it, and then play Season 2, which the last episode just came out recently. And I have not played that at all or heard anything about it. So that'll be a fun little drive-through. And then kind of make my own story for Skyrim, maybe, because the main storyline for Skyrim is not good at all. And I don't want to go through it again, because it is bad. And then I got to come up with a couple other things. I've got a long back catalog of games I haven't played yet, and a lot of them I have already bought and installed or downloaded, mostly because I want to go through their story, so I can do Let's Plays on that too and talk about the story on those.
Nice. Alright. Let's see here. Next up is events. We only have 2 left for the year. 3 if you count Banned Books Week.
4 if you count Nano.
Yeah. Next one up is Brooklyn Book Festival. Myself, Calvin, and Justin will be attending and having all sorts of shenanigans. That's September 21st. That week also kicks off Banned Books Week. That should be October 31st, not October 1st. It's just not a month-long convention, good lord. October 31st to November 2nd is Rhode Island Comic Con, where myself, Will, Ed, and Calvin will be attending. It has been recently brought to my attention that our affiliate, Itty Bitty Sheep, will not be able to attend, which is unfortunate due to various off-air reasons. But those, and then after that, of course, is NaNoWriMo 2014.
Dun dun dun.
I think that will be enough of a month-long event to wrap up the year. There's all sorts of various 2015 possibilities that we need to debate and ramble over. If we pin any of those down, those will go on the list eventually. But with that, all of our regular segments are done for this episode. Which means it's time to slowly wrap things up. If we happen to entertain you in any way, shape, or form, the easiest ways to show your appreciation is subscribing to our YouTube channel. Just search for Full Coverage Writers or Word Ninjas Live. We will pop up. We have our weekly show on there. We have author interviews. We have a couple of various Let's Play shenanigans and whatever else we pull together. We'll also have all of our event and press recordings posted when possible, and whatever else we happen to feel like tossing on there. If you want to help fund any of our various endeavors, you can go to our Etsy store, which is linked in our show notes. All purchases help to pay for all of our crazy shenanigans that we try to pull together, including convention attendance and coordination, like interviews, tech and recording upgrades, so we can provide better and more engaging content to you, and, you know, global domination, the regular stuff. And this show and all of our various other endeavors are brought to you by various organizations, affiliates, and fantastical peoples. All of their links are in the show notes for each episode, so definitely go check them out and be entertained by their ridiculousness. And with that, it is time to tell people who we are and where they can find us on the internet. I'm going to roll down the list of talkie faces as I see them on my screen, so let's start with Calvin.
Alright, you can find me at the following websites. Calvin.cwillia.ms, which is my personal portfolio website of random stuff that I do on any given day. You can also find me at the music website Riffraff. That's riffraff.net, riffraf.net. You can find my music at soundcloud.com/cdubny. You can find me on Tumblr at instacal.tumblr.com, and you can find me on the Twitters and the Instagrams at ccwii.
And how about Justin?
Actually, I'm sort of reorganizing my social media and how I'm going about it. So I'm going to pass for now. I will be the mysterious man and plug Full Coverage Writers and other future endeavors.
And how about the Will?
You can find me typically on my Tumblr page at darkhome.tumblr.com. It's spelled DARKHOM. It's a personal blog where I post wherever I want, so it does end up being pretty not safe for work. You can also check out some stuff for the story I'm supposed to be writing but haven't written anything for a while, but am still plotting on. My Roommate's a Stripper at myroommate'sastripper.tumblr.com. Let's see, you can also find me on SoFurry at darkhome.sofurry.com. And I should just go ahead and say, like, everything is not safe for work around me. I'm just not safe for work. One of us has to be an adult around here.
Not gonna be me.
And if you insist upon it, you can find my pretty much dead and decrepit Twitter account at Will Granville. I haven't touched it in forever. And that's pretty much it.
Alright. As for myself, you can track me down on my zombified Twitter feed, silver_wolf85. You can also find me on the Fairy Tale podcast as Makarov. They usually run on Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Last week was an exception because it was episode 150, so they had an episode every single night.
Ooh.
Each night was a different thing, so definitely worth checking out that if you are interested. You can also find me on my personal Tumblr, which is fancypantswolf.tumblr.com. That is occasionally not safe for work. It is tagged accordingly. One of the few things that I will actually tag on there. For Full Coverage Writers, which is the organization that covers everything that we do currently, our website is fcwriters.com. Our Etsy store is etsy.com/shop/fullcoveragewriters. For YouTube, the easiest short link is wnja.us/YouTube, or just search for Full Coverage Writers or Word Ninjas Live. Our literary Twitter is @FCWordNinja. Our literary Tumblr is fcwordninja.tumblr.com. Facebook is facebook.com/fullcoveragewriters. And for anything and everything else, just email us. The email address is wordninja@fcwriters.com. And that wraps up episode 58 of Word Ninjas Live. Tune in next week for episode 59. I have no idea what we'll have in store for that, but as with all episodes, it'll be very entertaining. And with that, until next week all.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
It would also help with my whole ability to retain information and remember stuff and not fumble around when trying to figure out who was that person, why did we need to deal with them, or what is this show, why am I on it, what is going on, stuff like that. As for the global type thing, I don't know, controlling fire or flames or speeding up the physics of various atoms would be pretty interesting and kind of useful in various scenarios, especially if the power goes out during the winter and we only have one crappy little fireplace that doesn't really cut it. That and being able to control fire is just pretty darn cool, regardless of if it's primarily in anime or Hollywood and whatnot.
True. Very true.
I feel like those two would be my personal and global abilities that I would like better control of. And hopefully I rambled on long enough for someone else to get an idea before I just start pointing at faces as Justin disappears, so...
I definitely know what I would do for personal.
Well, I nominate Will then.
I assume it would fit under personal. I want shape-shifting.
Well, that would be control over your physical form, so...
I would want shape-shifting because sometimes I feel that I should appear different. And I also like the idea of being able to be sneaky, stealthy better.
Shape-shifting would allow you to change any part of yourself, so you could be the ultimate spy.
And it just feels, I don't know, right? That would be my first pick. That would be definitely probably be my first pick. Would be the shape-shifting.
Not to mention, you'd never need a haircut again.
I've never have to shave again either. I hate shaving. It's tedious and annoying, and then it just grows back, and like the next day it's already stubbly. Why?
I have a solution for that.
Yeah.
Don't.
But the thing is, when I let it grow in, it is incredibly itchy.
Give it about a week. You'll be fine.
I'm not quite sure I'm ready to do the full beard thing yet. I imagine I'll let the full beard thing start happening as I get older.
Let it grow during the winter.
Keep the face warm. That's why I keep the mustache. Whenever I've shaved off the mustache for cosplay reasons, it's just like, what was the Angry Man from Family Guy? I said, if I couldn't do that, lightning bolts.
Well, my answers seem very insignificant in comparison now. Okay. The personal factor that I would like to manipulate is metabolism. So that way I could adjust my sleep schedule to however I like, and allow my body to conserve or use energy accordingly. So if I need to pull several all-nighters in a row, I'd be able to adjust my metabolism so I could stay awake without any significant detriment to my body.
When would you ever need to do that, though?
I don't know. I'm still trying to come up with scenarios for that, but might be able to come up with something.
Calvin, we need this website done tomorrow.
Give me 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. Three orders of pork fried rice from the Chinese food store, and lots of Gatorade. So that's the personal factor. Environmental factor. I've been trying to decide between control of wind or water, because both would be fun. I could use wind control to essentially fly wherever I need to, and just any way to avoid having to take public transportation or drive or things like that. I still don't have my license. ...
That I did not know.
Calvin and I are perpetually in the no driver's license club.
Yeah. Alright, I didn't come up with any fun scenario for water, so forget that. Wind.
Would you do the Superman pose when you're flying around? Or the
No,
powdered toast
powdered
man
toast man.
pose?
Definitely gotta go powdered toast.
Oh, no. Even better. The freezer pose. While flying. I'd literally be like running in the air. Yes, that'd be perfect.
You guys have all been thinking too small. And
Well, I
maybe
don't know, Justin, that's pretty hard to beat.
I forget his name.
It's been forever since I've
Family
seen
Guy?
Tom something?
the news reporter guy.
Yeah, the Anchorman.
Oh,
Tom
Tom Tucker?
Tom Tucker. When he had his mustache removed and he's sitting there, he's like, so cold. Like, that's what it feels like when you live with a mustache and then you shave it off. It's just cold.
And that's why I really shave.
So, yeah, shape-shifting. As for global, a part of me wants to say I'd want to do something that would be really helpful to the global community, like being able to make food grow so that there could be food. But on the other hand, I'd also think it would be cool to be able to control electricity.
That would have come in handy on a couple occasions.
certainly be your own little power supply, recharge generators or whatever. So I don't know which one I would choose, because on the other hand, I could make unlimited food. Just like plant seeds, and then I could just be like, nope, it's done. Instant food. Go feed the hungry.
Yeah, but how quickly do you think some foreign government is going to take you and provide food for their army and not anyone else?
That's where the shape-shifting comes in handy. I change my form and disappear into the night.
Into an ear of corn.
Yep.
So those two would work together. I could do it, and then I could shapeshift into another form and disappear, and no government would ever find me. I would have one form that I would use just for making crops grow faster. And then whenever there was trouble, I would shapeshift into any other form and just disappear. They'd never know where I was. Aha!
That's actually pretty brilliant.
So, those are my answers.
Would that ability be able to overlook the agricultural concepts of if you keep on growing wheat in one spot over and over again, it draws out all the nutrients for that, and then you have problems?
Hmm.
Or would you have to be a little strategic about it?
Well, there are definitely ways around that.
I'd probably just do crop
agriculture?
cycling.
Exactly, like that.
Or you could just grow weed hydroponically instead of food. That works too.
There is that as well.
I would probably just go with crop cycling. That way I could keep re-nutrifying the soil as it went. Be like a regular farmer, only in a fraction of the time. And all the food I would give to people who need food. Because there are a lot of people who need food.
Hmm.
All right.
Jeez, that makes a lot more sense than just being able to control fire. Good afternoon, ladies and menfolk. Welcome to episode 58 of Word Ninjas Live. I
Yes.
am your instigator of creative productivity, Charles, and joining me today is almost the entirety of our crew. Apparently they all wanted to play today. Hooray!
What they said.
Joining me is Calvin
Hello.
and Justin.
I'm here after a 2-week absence.
And Will.
Hello!
And probably Ed is hiding somewhere in the background doing other productive
what?
things.
No, I'm just kidding.
But yes,
He's
we're
being productive elsewhere.
probably doing diabolical machinations of some sort, as we do.
Indeed.
But in the meantime, the rest of us are going to bring you a show. And since we were somewhat short-staffed last week, we skipped our talkie points. But since we have so many people today, I'm going to make them answer the questions, whether they like it or not.
Ah, crap.
It's too late now, you're already on the show.
Here's my own doing. Or undoing.
Alright, the first talkie point is an actual hypothetical situation. The hypothetical situation is, you have the power to manipulate one personal factor and one global factor. In other words, you can control like the chemical wiring of your brain, because that's personal, and you could, I don't know, control the power of flames or fire or whatnot, because that is outside of your person. Anything else you interact with in life would just be normal. As in, like, current normal, not anime or Hollywood normal. Let's not
Real
get ridiculous here.
Real
What
normal, not
to-
Michael Bay normal.
Yes. That does not count, because that's Hollywood. What two abilities would you choose, and why? And considering we didn't leave space in the talkie points for people to post their answers, so that we could remember them conveniently when we're live, I will go first so other people can flail around behind the scenes and figure out their answers. Conveniently, I did kind of cheat by putting my answers in that question because those are the two I would probably choose. Or at least for the personal one, it would be the chemical wiring of my brain. Because then I could manipulate my energy levels, my interest levels, my motivation levels. I could get rid of a lot of stupid emotional and psychological crap filling up my head, slowing things down, which would make things a lot easier to do, especially for work and Terror 2015 and all of the various crazy endeavors I want to do, but just can't seem to pull together. And theoretically,
Maybe I took the question and gave myself too much power, but I can probably scale back somewhat and still accomplish what I'm trying to do. So for my personal factor, all you guys are forgetting the most obvious one, and that's immortality. And if I'm not allowed to use immortality, then I would just make my skin impervious to things going through it, except oxygen, I guess, because I think your skin cells need that.
They need sunlight too.
Yeah, things like that. I would allow something.
Moisture.
Maybe just keep metal out. I don't think people
keep
carry.
high velocity things from impacting your skin.
Photons are pretty high velocity. I don't think that would work out well.
High velocity solid objects.
Anything larger than a molecule.
So something to that effect. I prefer
maybe something in lines of Greed from Fullmetal Alchemist, where he can
Ooh,
change
yeah.
the density of his skin at will.
Ooh.
Since it's more like
Absolute defense.
carbon. Yeah.
Ooh, nice.
there's still some problems with conservation of momentum that you'd have to deal with.
He didn't seem to have any trouble kicking Ed's ass. Oh yes, Greed.
Excuse me.
And for the environmental thing, you guys are all thinking about your elements. I'm thinking about time itself. Basically, if I'm immortal and can control time, that's pretty much game over for everything else besides me. And I would even promise not to go backwards in time. That screws things up. Not interested.
Well, how would we ever know?
I'm not. Well, we already do know because it hasn't happened.
How do we know? Only tell us if you make it so we don't realize it.
Humans are stupid and infallible, so I'm pretty sure we would have screwed it up somehow.
How do you know
It
we
made
haven't?
it extremely obvious. Anyways, I'm just going to avoid the whole thing, but not going backwards in time. But I'll be able to slow time, stop time, change time locally. Now, the reason why I need to be immortal to pull this off is because if I change the time locally to around me, time goes normally, but everything else outside of me, has stopped, then I'm going to age a lot quicker than I normally would have. So the immortality thing would come in very handy, synergy-wise, with that other power.
That would be a pretty
Interesting.
impressive combination if you can find the balance between it all. But presumably the balance is inherent with those powers. You're not going to be trial and erroring to figure things out.
That is actually a pretty interesting combination. There was an article that I had read some time back that hypothesized the concept of immortality and your perception of time as you continue to live. And according to that article, your perception of time